Well, welcome to Men's Couch. For I'm in a week of 5 episodes. So, today we're going to be talking about attachment theory and attachment in regards to men and attachment. Usually, when we think of men, I feel like we don't think like men and attachment don't go like in the same sentence. I feel like it's like kind of like reserved for like when I feel like at least like in the with the podcast I've listened to, I feel like women have been like the um in the leading conversation on attachment, which is it's really attachment's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's like kind of why I like wanted to talk about it. I see a lot of this stuff on social media, and I think social media can be like a great resource for like mental health stuff.
Yeah,
Um, and attachment is one of these things that's like kind of coming to the surface and has kind of become a buzzword. And
yeah,
there's a lot of like mixed understanding about like what it is and what it isn't. So
mm,
I thought it would be um, interesting and helpful to talk through it. And particularly like through as you mentioned, like we often don't think of men when we think of attachment styles.
yeah.
And adding that lens to the conversation I thought would be helpful and informative for somebody out there.
Yeah. Now, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, I asked you, do you think men are more avoidantly attached?
Yeah.
Because that's my like theory, my thinking is,
Yeah. I mean, I generally avoid speaking in generalization, but
yeah.
I do think, societally there is, and I'm sure we'll get into like how these attachment styles form.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, I do think the zeitgeist is such that um, men grow up being taught that vulnerability is like a weakness, or that like talking
Mhm.
about our emotions is wrong.
Yeah.
Um, and then that can lead to like an avoidant attachment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then that shows up in all these kind of like transmuted behaviors, because for any human, male or female, like stuffing our emotions down doesn't work. So that has
Yeah.
to come out
Yeah.
sideways some way.
Yeah.
And usually that's in relationship, right? Be it getting angry or just shutting down, or as a therapist, like oftentimes I just hear men say like, "Oh, I'm just like not emotional." And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no,
Yeah.
you just haven't been given a platform or a vocabulary of which to like be emotional with.
Yeah, because I always wonder, like, is it that you're not emotional, or is it that you're like disconnected from your emotional experience?
Yeah, I experience more of the latter, like just kind
Yeah,
of being a detached from
yeah,
again, um feeling like you have a safe space to like talk about your emotions without being judged or thought of as unmanly.
right. And so, this we talked a little bit about attachment on the podcast before, but this is like I'm excited to dive into this. Um, so, the first thing is what attachment theory is, and so I like how it's framed. It's like not about like generalizing, like labeling ourselves and blaming our parents. It's more of like understanding who we are and just our patterns. For me, I feel like I'm more of the I don't know if I'm like I've I feel like I've over the course of my like adult life. I say that as like as if I'm old, but
Sure.
like I feel like I've developed a more secure attachment. Um, I would say like generally, initially, I felt that I was more of the anxious anxious attachment, but I feel like over time I just developed a more secure attachment. The more I like um understood myself, and the more I developed healthy ways to connect with other people.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and that's like kind of hits on like one of the misconceptions that I see. in attachment being like talked about more on social media.
Mhm.
um that's the one thing that I always like want to make clear to people, and just as you put it, like these are things that can change. Like
Yeah.
there, it's not a diagnosis, it's not even like a personality type.
Yes.
um it really is just like a pattern of behavior. And
Yeah.
as with anything, like we can learn and change our behaviors.
Mhm.
But it starts with just like bringing an awareness and bringing a vocabulary to understand. No, like you're not just not emotional. Um, Maybe you just didn't have parents who may have been great parents, but may
Yeah.
have not understood like emotional attunement themselves. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, how would you be expected to know any of this stuff in
Yeah.
relationship?
So therefore you're like, you're not necessarily equipped to name and process your emotions because you like your parents like didn't necessarily give you that space to do so because they didn't really know how to equip you because they probably weren't equipped themselves. But this isn't about like blaming them. It's about seeing like how you developed your relational pattern given how you were raised, or like even it can even go into for me personally it's like how my peers influence me because like my like especially like in middle school I felt that uh given that what I've uh the hectic craziness of middle school I feel like that definitely affected my attachment development. So
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, this we're talking a lot about like relationships, and oftentimes that can kind of like pigeonhole us into like romantic relationships. But
yeah.
this is stuff that shows up like with coworkers, with friends,
Yeah.
with romantic partners, with family. Um, so for men, especially, like this is, um, I know like as a man, like you kind of hear like let's talk about our feelings more, and like you want to resist that conversation. But like this can be applicable to like the workplace, and
Yeah.
um how you show up as a leader, how you respond to criticism. So
Yeah.
this isn't just about like romantic relationships per se. And as you
Mhm.
put it, like, yeah, I noticed this with like my friends and how I've developed in my relationships with them throughout my lifetime.
Yeah, I read Platonic by Marissa Franco. I always reference her. I'm actually going to meet with her over the winter break. I'm excited for that. She wrote a book on friendship attachment, and I felt that that was very eye opening because when it comes to attachment, like you said, we always talk about the romantic piece of it, and like what style is your partner, or like are you what style are you, and how's that affecting things? But um yeah, it can go into like any relational dynamic, and I feel like the more we understand how uh, like men are socialized, the more I feel like we're able to understand how men show up like as adults, because I feel like what I see a lot, and this is not to like generalize, what I see in a lot of men, at least like young men, is that they lean towards the more like avoidant side, and they're more like um not that they're emotionally shut down, but that they don't um they're very, I guess like they're more distant in a way, like um they kind of like project that they don't have like a need for social relationships but it's more of like um it's not like necessarily a need, but like I don't know how to say it. It's like I don't know how to say
Yeah,
it.
no, I think you're going down the right lane. Like, um, it might be helpful if we like first kind of differentiate like what are the when we're talking about attachment and like
Yeah.
um different attachment styles, like what are um those four different types of attachment styles.
Yeah.
Because I do think like your thesis is right that I do think generally men tend to be more avoidant, but
That's like at least like this isn't. I'm not trying to like generalize. This is at least like my experience with talking to men and just
Sure.
my friends. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it might be helpful to just kind of provide a framework of the way that I see like these four attachment styles,
Yeah.
um, and kind of the indicators of where they might pop up in your behaviors and in your life.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so kind of the goal, like the thing that we're all kind of striving towards,
Mm.
is the secure attachment type,
Yeah. That's okay.
which would be kind of characterized by somebody who um, feels okay with like some independence, but
Mm.
also doesn't like shy away from closeness.
Yeah. So it's like the balance between like autonomy and having intimacy in relationships.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that's exactly right. Like they feel comfortable being away from for their partner for a couple weeks or a
Mm.
couple days, a couple weeks if need be. They're okay not getting like constant reassurance
Yeah.
that that friend is still going to be there. Not really seeking like external validation, but like able to validate themselves first.
Yeah.
Um, and then what you've alluded to is kind of like the more avoidant attachment
Mm.
style, where maybe in childhood they kind of had like helicoptery parents who
Mm.
um, were really trying and failing at like meeting their emotional needs,
Mm.
but that like effort and um, kind of hovering
Mm.
made them want to retreat. So now in
Yeah.
adulthood, um, intimacy like makes them
Yeah.
anxious and they need time alone or they resist the deep conversations because somewhere along the line they were taught that their emotions were weak or wrong.
I feel
um
like that, like experiencing that sort of um helicopter parenting style might like they might feel like they might like fear that if any like closeness in a relationship is going to lead to that like the like that controlling or that like suffocating, like I don't want to feel that this person is like kind of like controlling or like getting so much into my life. Like I think it's like a fear of like enmeshment with given that like they may have experienced that in childhood.
for sure. um yeah, the thing that I hear men especially say often is like, I prefer like logic over emotion.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think prototypical like avoidant attachment. Because the reality is like, um our brain gives us both rational
Mm-hmm.
objective data, but it also gives us like emotional data, and we
Yeah.
need the
A
overlap of
balance.
like both of those things
Yeah.
to show up in a healthy way in relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we lean too much on just the logic, that's where we're not meeting our partner's needs, and that's where conflict arises.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say I'm more? I don't know if I'm more like the emotional. I feel like I'm now more balanced. Yeah. Yeah, I'll say I'm more balanced now. But and then we have the secure attachment, the avoidant attachment, the disorganized. So it's like anxious and avoidant. So it says they want closeness, but they fear at the same time. So it's like the push pull, sometimes like give and then sometimes like pull back, and then is often tied to trauma or unpredictable caregiving. So I feel like that is tied to like if parents or like sometimes if it's like not consistent, if like the family's like sometimes they're sometimes meeting needs and then sometimes not, then that's probably that they're like the child like internalizes that, and then that's how like they kind of show up in like adulthood.
Yeah. Yep. I would say this one's like rarer. Like I think of this as, I know at the beginning of the hour I kind of said this isn't like a pathology or a diagnosis, but
Yeah.
um disorganized attachment, like you'll see more often in like actual disordered
Mm.
behavior, like something like reactive attachment disorder.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you'll see it a lot in trauma.
Yeah.
um you'll see it a lot in like uh kids who have been adopted or maybe spent like
Mm.
time in and out of like foster care, so
Yeah.
their emotional needs and just like physical safety needs, um the attention that were given to those things was like really kind of varied. um
Yeah.
so I would say this one's kind of the rarer of the four, but absolutely a possibility.
Yeah.
um but what you see more often is just kind of like a true anxious attachment, um where it's kind of the opposite parenting style, where like um their parents were maybe avoidant themselves, and that
Mm.
as a child you were kind of craving like,
Yeah.
I need reassurance that like you're gonna look after me, mom and dad, or
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
when I'm sad you're gonna take care of me or like give me a hug.
Yeah.
When we grow up without those things as an adult, we still have that like
That need.
craving and need
Yeah.
for it. um so this is often characterized by like if you're like a person that like overthinks text, or
Mm.
um if your girlfriend or boyfriend is going to be away for a weekend, like are you constantly worried that they're going to cheat on you despite not having any evidence that they would ever do that?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
do you feel like rejected pretty easily? Do you find yourself like attaching like very quickly to a person, like
Mhm.
falling in love very quickly?
Yeah, I would say for this one, the anxious, like I feel like anxious attachment people struggle with having like that healthy space in in a relationship. So like they see like that space as this person's like not going to be interested in me, or like they are kind of like it's like kind of like a fear of losing the importance of the relationship because of like the distance. And I feel like anxious attachment people, like they need so much like frequency because of like that insecurity of, if we're not like so frequent, then that means that the relationship can't hold up. And I think that's like kind of based on um that parenting style of the avoidance, because they didn't like have that like regular secure attachment, that they feel like even like normal distance might like kind of create like, oh, I'm gonna lose this relationship. So
Yeah, yeah, I would say that's kind of like nail on the head, and like kind of describes like the anchor that kind of connects the avoidant and the anxiously attached, is like
mhm.
that fear of conflict. So for like
Yeah.
the avoidant, it would be like, I want to avoid conflict because it's going to involve like vulnerability and like emotional vocabulary and like some level of intimacy. And from the
Mhm.
anxiously attached side, it's like, I want to avoid conflict because I feel like it means that my partner like doesn't like me
I was gonna
anymore.
reject me.
When the
Yeah.
reality is like conflict is like a healthy part of relationship,
Mhm.
when you can kind of learn to navigate it together. um so yeah, that's kind of where I see kind of these two kind of being anchored in, is like how they fear conflict in different
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. So